Hey, what's going on everyone? What's everyone up to today? In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Sony IER-M9. So let's start off with the cable fit and build. So yeah, before we talk about that, this is a case it comes with. Very nice. This top part is cold to the touch. And you just pop it open. So yeah, really nice case. Minimalistic. So I do like the case. So yeah, let's talk about the cable now. So the cable is exceptionally light. It doesn't tangle up that much, maybe a little, but nothing bad at all. Really, really good cable. I do wish this memory thing wasn't here because it does get slightly annoying. Like it goes on one side or another side. But yeah, not bad by any means. I'm just nitpicking. So everything I say about this I'm just nitpicking. So yeah, that's a cable. It's light. I never found that it weighed me down or it was uncomfortable. So yeah, that's a cable. Now let's talk about the fit. So the fit on these is really good. It's not uncomfortable. I didn't get any type of fatigue, or I felt like it was causing issues, or there's too much pressure buildup in my ear. So yeah, it's a really good fit. One of the best fits I've ever tried. So yeah, that's the fit. Now let's talk about the build quality. So I think this is made out of magnesium. And it has this nice carbon fiber plate here. So yeah, it does have like a reflective look to it, which is really, really cool. One of the coolest designs I've seen. I don't even think I've seen an IEM with this type of a design. So yeah, that's the fit, cable, and build. Now let's talk about the sound quality. So let's start off with the bass. So actually, before I talk about the sound, I'm just gonna note this IEM doesn't have any bad timbre issues. It's very, very coherent. I never thought it was out of control or out of place. And most IEMs can't pull this off. I don't know why, but yeah, I did notice that. So yeah, really, really coherent sound. Not too much bad BA timbre in the bass, mids, or treble notes. So yeah, that's what I thought about that. So yeah, let's talk about the bass, mids, treble, and then we'll go into soundstage, imaging, and detail retrieval. So yeah, let's start off with the bass. So the bass goes low. It hits the lowest sub-bass notes, and it's never boomy. I never found this IEM to be boomy. The control of the bass is very well done. It's always a part of my mix. It never overshadows your music. So if you do want a boosted bass or you're a bass head, you have to know what you're buying. Like this isn't gonna offer you bass head type of bass. So yeah, that is one thing to take into consideration. So overall, I did think the bass was good because it had good sub bass, but I do wish the mid bass didn't bleed into the lower mid range. It does slightly bleed into the lower mid range. I'm just being picky, but it does do that a little. So the only real issue I have with the bass is I wish the sub bass was separated from the mid bass a little better. Because sometimes you do get a slight bit of boxiness if I'm being extremely critical. But most people won't even notice this, or they probably don't even know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that does happen on certain occasions. But yeah, other than that, I have no issues with the bass. Other than I wish it was separated better from the lower mid-range. So yeah, that's what I thought about the bass. So any track I played that had a bunch of bass, it portrayed it pretty accurately. It didn't boost it, or it wasn't too little. So this is like a studio type of sound. So yeah, really good bass. I wouldn't say it sounds like a dynamic driver because it's close, but it doesn't sound like a dynamic driver. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Yeah, that's what I thought about the bass. Really good. Not too many issues with the bass. So yeah, that's the bass. Now let's talk about the mid-range. So the mid-range on this IEM is absolutely amazing. The layers of the instruments, the guitar, any type of instruments you play on here will sound amazing. So the tonality of the mid-range is spot on. The body of the mid-range isn't thick or thin. The placement of the vocals is dead, like dead flat. I never thought it was thin or thick. So it doesn't overemphasize anything. It's just very articulate. Close to what it was recorded is what this IEM is. So yeah, that's what I thought about the mid-range. The separation is amazing. Like, you hear the layers of the music so well. If there's sounds coming from top, you hear that. If there's things down below, you hear that. If there's things going on here, it just comes like that. I don't even know. It does crazy things in the mid-range. So yeah, that's what I thought about the mid-range. Really, really good. So the only area that I have an issue with is that bass does bleed in to the mid-range slightly. So that's basically the only main issue I have with this IEM, and the bass in the mid-range. But yeah, other than that, it doesn't do that many things wrong. Like, this is an amazing IEM. Mids are just phenomenal. The tonality is spot on of the voices. Sounds very lifelike and realistic. So I never thought it was like plasticky or grainy. None of that stuff. Not one bit. So yeah, that's what I thought about the mid-range. Now let's talk about the treble. So the treble on this IEM, it has a bunch of air. Like, when you're listening to a flute, like, you hear the layer of the flute. Like, that's how much air you get. And the decay is very, very natural. So because of the coherent sound, it's able to do that. And it goes to the highest octave of the treble. Like, very, very airy. You do get a sense of that reverb effect where it just decays nice and slowly. So not too fast, not too slow, just the right amount. And most IEMs I've heard don't do these things. Even if they cost the same as these, they don't do these things. So, like, you get the right amount of air. If a track doesn't have too much treble, it's not going to hype it up. You're just going to hear what the track was. And if you listen to a song that has a bunch of treble, or the producer maybe messed up and put too much treble, you're going to hear that. So yeah, that's the treble. So if you do listen to a lot of older recordings, it might sound overly warm on these, but when you listen to modern stuff that was recorded properly, it's amazing. Like, very resolving. So yeah, that's what I thought about the treble. So yeah, one thing to note is if your library already has some questionable things like that aren't recorded perfectly, you will notice that because it might just not sound as good. So I was testing out a bunch of music, and I did notice a lot of these songs aren't even recorded that great. So I had to switch around and do a bunch of things. So yeah, I would consider this IEM warm, neutral with bass boost. So yeah, that's what I thought. So yeah, that's the treble. And before we talk about the soundstage and imaging, I'm just gonna note one thing is this IEM, I'm constantly chasing tracks that are recorded perfectly. And if you saw my review of the U12T, I said the same thing. So whenever I'm doing that, that means the IEM is phenomenal. Because normally, I don't say those things about an IEM. But with these, I'm constantly chasing like finding the best composers. So basically with this IEM, I'm always focusing on the composition of the music. And any good IEM, that's what it should do. You should get the placement perfectly. The layering, the details should come across without any issues. And with this IEM, that's exactly what I got. So it's not overly warm or bright. It just depends on the track you're listening to. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. Now let's talk about the soundstage and imaging. So the soundstage is really, really good. If the U12T is like this far out, I'd say the IER-M9 is like this. So a little better than the IER-M7 that I reviewed. So that's what I thought about the soundstage. The depth of the sound and the decay is so perfect on these. Like, nothing's ever out of place. Like, everything's separated extremely well. Never ever did I think it got claustrophobic or muddy. Just never got that unless the track was recorded in a bad manner. So that's what I thought about the soundstage. Now the imaging, if I had to use one word to describe it, it would be holographic. You get sounds coming from like crazy angles, like you get sounds coming like this, and you get sounds coming like that, and down below things are happening. So everything just comes from like crazy angles that I never really even imagined. Like I didn't even know an IEM could do these things until I heard this. And I thought the M7 did a really good job with the imaging, but this takes it to a whole new level. It's really, really good. It's like, think of it like Pablo Picasso. If Pablo Picasso were to make an IEM, this is what it would be in terms of the imaging. Like, it paints a picture. So you could definitely envision what's happening around you. So, like, I don't know, it just sounds like a full-size speaker system or something. With the imaging, like, you hear everything right, left, top to bottom. And I don't really say these things about an IEM. You could watch a bunch of my reviews. I'm really, really critical. So that's what I thought about the imaging on these. It's definitely holographic. Like, I don't know how it pulled that off, but I would say the imaging is spectacular on these. I would say it's comparable to the U12T, but they sound different, so yeah. So that's it, imaging, amazing imaging. The imaging really, really stood out to me on these. So yeah. So overall, if I had to say, I only have 2 complaints. I wish the bass was separated better from the mid-range, and I wish that the mid-range didn't have that slight bit of boxiness or breath-like texture. But other than that, the treble is very, very airy. Like, that probably top 2 that I've heard for treble air, and natural decay. So yeah, it's really, really good. So yeah, I have like 2 or 3 complaints. So if anyone from Sony is watching this, just separate the sub bass better from the mid bass, and then make sure that the mid range isn't a little boxy, because if you do separate the sub bass from the mid range, you won't get that issue. So yeah, other than that, I don't really have too many complaints. Like, I'm trying to think of what I could complain about, but other than those 2 things, like the bass, I wish it went a little lower, and I wish that the mid-range didn't have that slight boxiness, because the mid-bass bleeds into the lower mid-range. So yeah, those are the only real issues I have. So yeah, now let's talk about the detail retrieval. So I would give this a solid more than an A+. I would say it's just slightly behind the U12T, maybe by like 20%, 20 or 30% about. Yeah, that sounds about right. So yeah, I do think it's really, really good. One of the best IEMs I've ever heard. So yeah, that's what I thought about the Sony IER-M9. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. And take care, guys. I'll see you in the next one. And like, comment, and subscribe.